All right, so I've got a new system here. Let's see if I can get it working without crashing it, because that would be great. And it kind of gives me a little digital whiteboard here that I can use to draw. So what we're going to be working on here is inequalities when we have a negative number of variables on one side. And the process for this is pretty much the same as it has been. We're going to take this, we're going to go ahead and divide by -2 on each side. And what that's going to give us here, this will cancel out. We end up with x is greater than, and 6 divided by -2 is -3. So x is greater than -3. All right, and so we're going to go ahead and test this, and we're going to test it by, we have -2, and we're going to plug in times 0, because 0 is a number that is greater than -3, so 0, and that has to be greater than 6. You may see where this is going here, because if we take -2 and multiply it times 0, we end up with 0 is greater than 6. We know 0 is not greater than 6. Anyone would rather have $6 than $0. So clearly there's a mistake here. Well, let me show you what's going on here. We're going to jump over and we're going to look at 1 is less than 2. And we're going to do what we did on the other side, where we're going to multiply both sides by -1. And what we find here is we end up with -1 is less than -2. And this is obviously not true. -1 is more than -2. I'd rather have a dollar. I'd rather owe a dollar than $2. So clearly there's an issue here. And the issue actually comes in right here. Whenever we're multiplying both sides by a negative number, this actually is going to change with an inequality. It's going to change what's happening right here, because we've essentially inverted what's going on. So what we really have here is -1 is greater than -2. And that, of course, is true, -1 being more than -2. So now we're going to jump back over to our other problem, the way we had it here, and we're going to go ahead and say, okay, we didn't multiply, we divided by -2, but that's the same thing as multiplying times -1/2. So we really kind of did multiply, division and multiplication working the same way there. So right here, when we put this symbol, we need to make sure that instead of a x, instead of that being a greater than, we need to swap it to a less than. So now when we go ahead and plug it in, notice what we have here. Right now it says x is less than -3. So we don't want to plug in 0 anymore. We're going to get rid of that right there. Instead, we're going to plug in what says it should work. So we're going to plug in -4. And when we plug in -4, we have 2 times -4, which is 8. 8 is more than 6, therefore we've done this correctly. So the big takeaway from this, everything else with inequalities pretty much works the same, except when you have to multiply by a negative number, that's going to swap your inequality sign around. Now, if it's a greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, it's still going to be greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, but it's going to just swap directions. And that should be all you really need to be able to handle this week's more advanced, the more advanced questions that we're looking at.